Republicans tried out a variety of arguments to defend Trump today, that the president can do whatever he wants, that it's totally legitimate to investigate the DNC in 2016, the Bidens, and that extortion or bribery or quid pro quo or whatever Democrats want to call it doesn't count if you don't pull it off.
Leshchenko was a source for Fusion GPS's operation to dirty up the Trump campaign, including the compilation of the Steele dossier.
President Zelensky didn't announce he was going to investigate Burisma or the Bidens. He didn't do a press conference and say, I'm going to investigate the Bidens, we're going to investigate Burisma. President Zelensky doesn't announce it before the aid is released on the 11th.
Are either of you here today to assert there was an impeachable offense in that call? Shout it out.
You asked the witness a question. The witness
I'll withdraw the question. What did President Zelensky actually do to get the aid? The answer is nothing. He did nothing. He didn't open any investigations.
We're not talking any country, we're talking Ukraine. Ernst & Young said one of the 3 most corrupt countries on the planet. President Trump said, let's just see if he's legit. So for 55 days, we checked him out.
This irregular channel of diplomacy, it's not as outlandish as it could be. Is that correct?
Not as outlandish as it could be. As to whether any of those performances worked, I want to bring in Republican strategist Tim Miller, who served as a communications director for Jeb Bush's 2016 presidential campaign. There's 2 things that I always note when I watch Republican House members. One is that they don't seem to be aiming their rhetoric to like the middle of the electorate. You know, really, isn't that an amazing insight? As a kind of persuasive undertaking, and that I think that was true today, don't you think?
Well, for sure. I mean, Nunes's opening statement was like a conspiracy potpourri. You know, CrowdStrike and Chalupa and Fusion GPS. I don't even understand how a swing voter watching that could even understand or translate what he was saying unless they were kind of steeped in this, Sean Hannity-esque, conspiracy tale narrative that they've been spinning. And so, I think that set the tone. Now, Jordan and Stefanik, I think there were some better arguments that were maybe not 100% accurate or true or defensible, but there were some better arguments that came out of Stefanik. Nikki Haley on the shows when she was making the rounds last week made a couple of okay arguments, but most of the House guys today, they're playing to their base. They want to make everybody feel good, and they want to keep everybody on board. They think that if they get a party line vote, who do they need to convince?
That I think is part of, so when you think about like not aiming for the middle electorate, it's like they got to hold the 40%. They've learned this lesson, right? Like hold fast, hold the 40%. I think the Democrats, it was interesting to me just in terms of like the kind of credentials of these two, they really did seem to be trying to make a kind of middle of the road argument insofar as there's no ideological freight to this. Right? Like it seemed to me they're trying to make this argument that like what's being done here is wrong and it's against a bipartisan consensus, et cetera.
Yeah, in some senses, they were kind of trying to appeal to me, right? Or to the George H.W. Bushian, kind of respect for the diplomatic corps. And that's who these 2 guys were, as best as I could tell. I mean, they seemed like George H.W. Bush-style Republicans who were testifying today. And I thought Schiff's opening statement really was pretty fact-based. What he was trying to do was explain the narrative as clearly as possible. And there wasn't a lot of kind of gratuitous slaps at Trump. I mean, there are plenty of opportunities for that, of course. So I guess I would agree with that. I think that if you are the Democrats, so that makes sense, right? Who are you trying to win over?
That's right.
Susan Collins, Mitt Romney. You want to at least get a couple of bipartisan votes so the end vote in the Senate isn't a totally party line deal. With the Republicans, you're just trying to get a party line deal. So the persuadable universe here is a pretty small group of me's.
Yeah, that's right. Small group of yous, which is a small group. We should just note, sometimes overrepresented. The other thought I had here was people have been making fun of they didn't get away with it argument. Rightly so. There's the sideshow Bob in jail in The Simpsons saying no one gets a Nobel Prize for attempted chemistry, like attempted murder. But in some ways, I guess in some ways it's the best. It is kind of the best argument they have because at least it doesn't require them to say it's fine for if he had gotten away with it and also to deny the facts that are produced.
I think it's the second best argument, right? Stefanik made that in the post-game press conference. She said there was no investigation in the end into Burisma. They got their aid. They didn't get their aid under Obama. And that's that. She's a congresswoman from New York who worked with me at the RNC, is a traditional Republican type. The problem with that argument for me is that that Zelensky was booked on CNN, right? And they were 2 days away from getting away with it, from winning the Chemistry Nobel Prize Award, right? So there's some holes in that.
And the only reason that the money was released, as far as we can tell, is that the whole whistleblower complaint started to roll along.
2 days beforehand, right? The whistleblower complaint was on the 9th, and then on the 11th they released the aid. So I think there's some holes there. The Haley argument over the weekend, which was, this is the death penalty. These guys have been trying to do this for 3 years. Is this a death penalty type crime? I think that's their best argument. I disagree with it also because it was trying to impact the next election, which is why I think it's a death penalty crime. But I think that's the most compelling.
All right, Tim Miller, thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.